You're watching Mainebiz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
Mark Twain once said, "I'm not one of those who in expressing opinions confines themselves to just the facts." My guess is that today's show you'll hear a lot of good deal of both, opinions and facts, and hopefully some opinions actually based on fact. Here to tackle the business issues of the day are Jim Damicis of PolicyOne Research, Tarren Bragdon from the Maine Heritage Policy Center, Merritt Carey representing Maine Businesses for Social Responsibility, and Breen from Bangor Savings Bank. Thank you all and welcome. I'm glad you could be here today. You're my guinea pigs. This is our first rapid-fire Sunday roundtable that we're having, so we're going to see how this works, where we throw out a number of different topics and issues on business in Maine and see what our experts have to say about that. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. Okay, you're the experts, by the way. Okay, we're going to jump right in. Issue number one, logging feud escalates over foreign hires. Now, I know you're all logging in northern Maine pulp and paper experts. You're not, of course, but we want to talk about this issue because it's certainly something that's in the papers right now. After hearing reports of questionable practices, officials from the Maine Department of Labor visited northern Maine in June for a loggers forum and made more visits in July. Maine loggers claimed that they were routinely being overlooked for local woodcutting jobs that were being filled by Canadians. Laura Fortman, who's the Commissioner of the Department of Labor, said, "The governor thinks that if there's even one Maine person who has qualifications for these jobs, they should have a fair shot at getting the job." In July, 100 Maine loggers filed for unemployment, according to Fortman. Meanwhile, 37 logging companies submitted 155 applications for the H-2A visas, seeking to fill 477 jobs. So, my question to you all is, this is a reoccurring problem. We've heard this before almost every 10 years, like clockwork, this comes back. So what's the answer to it? Is there an answer to this reoccurring problem? And is this protectionism? And if so, is that okay? Do we want to protect that kind of traditional logging industry that's there? And how does that affect the rest of our business downstream, pulp and paper and the paper industry in particular? So, who wants to weigh in first on our logging question?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay, yellow.
You know, I've been talking to folks in the industry the last few days, and it's really important for folks to realize how integrated Americans and Canadians are in the North Woods. 25% of the wood cut in Maine's woods is cut by Canadian loggers. And, you know, in northern Maine in particular, a lot of the rivers flow north. You know, they're very far from the closest towns in Maine. And so it's not just an issue of how many loggers are out there on each side of the border, but where are the jobs and who wants them. I think the one thing everyone I've talked to, though, agrees on is the law needs to be followed, period. There are very strict requirements as to what's supposed to happen under federal law in terms of proving that you need foreign workers, in terms of proving that you've offered those jobs first to American workers. If the law isn't being followed, that needs to be established, and the law does need to be followed, period. I haven't met anybody who would disagree with that.
Okay, follow the law, the federal law, but is this something that's good? How does that, if in fact we do have that level of protectionism, does it drive up the wage for those workers, for U.S. workers? And if so, how does that affect the pulp and paper industry, or one of our big industries in Maine? What do you think about that?
Well, I think, first of all, I do agree with the point of if the regulations are there and the law is there, then they need to be followed. I do think it has an impact on driving wages up. What I do think you need
is that good?
I think it's a balance. I don't think you can just simply say the jobs need to go where the where the wages are the cheapest, because too many workers in Maine rely on those wages. We need to keep them working, and it's not just a northern Maine issue. A lot of the industry in Maine is has implications through central and southern Maine as well.
Through the whole economy.
Right, exactly. And it's not just logging; it's pulp and paper, it's the wood products, and then it's also the service providers that rely on that industry as well. So.
All right. All right, others want to weigh in?
I think we just have to be really careful, because on one hand we can think we're enforcing regulations that are saving Maine jobs, but in reality we're driving up the cost of folks in the construction industry or people who want to have additions or expansions on their home. There are a lot of unintended consequences, and you can't consider any of these things in isolation.
Is that why this issue keeps coming back? It's not easy. There is that balance, it seems like.
I think it is. Yeah. And again, if we're just focusing on these Maine loggers, we might see it one way, but if we're looking at the bigger impact on consumers, we recognize there needs to be a balance.
Well, let me ask one more thing for you to weigh into. I mean, how much of this has to do with the fact that this is part of Maine heritage? Those traditional jobs, logging, northern Maine in particular, we have the same kinds of things when we talk about the fishing industry. You know, is that part of the issue here too?
Well, I think it's important, Alan, but it's important to recognize in the big picture it's a shared heritage. I mean, Maine has so much in common with Acadia and Quebec
trying to erase that border,
and the Maritimes. Well, I think it's important. We're going to have disputes over lumber. We're going to have disputes over fisheries. We're going to have disputes over exactly where the energy corridor goes and who gets to use it. But in the big picture, it's important that we recognize we have way more in common economically and way more to gain by working together with Atlantic Canada
He's trying to get
than
on the
just
Atlantic
resolving
Canada
these
show.
individual issues.
Yeah, you're right. That's actually right. When we look at that, always people I have on the show said, you're looking at the map the wrong way. Look at the map and view Canada. You get the last word on this issue. Go ahead, Merritt.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's obviously symptomatic of the larger issues in the economy right now. And I think we're seeing what's going on in the logging industry. I think it's related to what's going on in the lobstering industry. I think we're seeing the same kind of tensions emerging in the lobstering industry around the boundaries and the territories.
Yeah.
I think they're connected. Most of our lobsters go to Canada for processing. A lot of our wood goes to Canada for processing. So we are very interconnected with the Canadians in many different ways. And I think we need to resolve these issues in as amicable a way as possible that are going to strengthen both economies. Because we don't win by locking out the Canadians.
Okay. And one of the tricky issues with this too, and it has to do with, I think, with the fishing industry as well, is the federal regulations overlay everything. We do try to tweak around the edges at the state level, I think, our policymakers, to try to figure out exactly those kind of questions you are all grappling with here today, but it's tough because feds they trump it all. All right. We're going to move on to issue number 2. Unless you have more burning issues.
I just want to say,
Go ahead.
just
Go
add
ahead.
one piece on that logging is I just think it needs to be looked at not just as what can we do to save this historic and culturally historic industry, because a lot of what lies in the woods impacts new industries and innovative industries, including our alternative energies and wood products that are related to composites and so forth like that. So the future industries as well rely on getting wood out of the forest and managing that product well.
Okay. Very well put. Okay, we are going to go move on to the next issue, but we're going to stop right here because we're going to save that one for our second segment. When we come back, we're going to be talking about how the legislators in this is another Northern Maine topic that we're going to talk about, legislators in Northern Maine looking at the issue of the Montreal, Maine and Atlantic Railway, and should that be purchased through bonds from the state. So stay here.
Mainebiz Sunday is brought to you by Bangor Savings Bank, where you can enjoy free ATMs worldwide.